My name is Joyce Ong. I run a marketing consultancy providing support for small and medium-sized businesses. Together with a technology partner that I work with, they're based in Leicester. We deliver technology solutions such as mobile apps, landing pages, websites, and recently SEO services as well, which we're about to launch. So with my marketing background, we are more than an app developer or web developer or SEO provider. What I actually do is I work with a small business, provide 360-degree marketing advice to make sure that the technology that we're introducing and helping to build for the business will give them a return on their marketing investment. So a bit more about me: a lifetime of marketing project management experience, working for large corporations in Singapore and then moving on to Zurich. I was there for 4 years, and then finally in London, working for American Express and Credit Suisse. So now the last 4 years, I have been running my own marketing consultancy, working specifically with small and medium-sized businesses. So keen interest, marketing technology, not just any sort of technology, but really tech that that's affordable, that's commercially tried and tested, and that could actually help small businesses. So that's a bit about me. So I'm going to move on to my slides. I promise there won't be that many slides because like Perrin has said, there will be Q&A at the end. So I hope to be able to give you the opportunity to answer some questions there at the end if you do have questions. So moving on, this is what we're covering in my talk today about marketing and event apps. 4 points to cover. First, I'll touch on mobile trends that you can't ignore, what it means to small businesses. Secondly, I'll cover consumer behavior. So moving on, sort of focusing a bit more about how consumers book events, and I'll talk about 3 stories which are personal to me, which I can relate about how companies have pivoted from traditional model of running events to online, bringing the events online. And thirdly, more on the practical side of things in terms of app marketing, I'll touch on 3 must-have ingredients for an app to actually work for small businesses. Fourthly, I'll talk about a case study, which it's a client of ours, TEDx, and tell you a story of how the app has worked for them. So I hope all that is relevant to you. If you have any questions as I go along, please do drop your question in the chat box. So moving on to mobile trends here. This is a piece of research that I've come across, which I would highly recommend. It's a 165-page report detailing the UK market, and this is a research done by Ofcom on communications, on the communications market in the UK, so specific to UK research. And one of the pieces of research they've done is every year they would track time spent on mobile device by device. And in this case, as you can see in this research, the total time spent online by adult internet users in the UK by device share. And so they've split up the devices into 3. Essentially, it's computer or laptop, smartphone as a second device, and tablet. So they're trying to track the amount of time we spend on each of these 3 devices. And obviously, as you can see through the years from 2015 to 2018, the majority of time spent, which is 86%, that's an overwhelming amount of time spent online, is on a smartphone. And on a smartphone, not just on the smartphone, but via apps as well. So what's interesting is they have split up this bit of research. The green areas are your mobile phone usage. And so you can see it's a large part of their time spent. But out of the time spent, most of the time is on an app. So there is also what's interesting as well is there's an increase of smartphone usage across all age groups, and this piece of research is also in a 165-page report, which I won't go into, but the research also goes on to show that this increase is actually across all different age groups. The trend is undeniable, and obviously, as you can guess, the younger the age group is, the more time they would spend on online and on apps especially. So you may ask, why this piece of research, what is it for? Well, this research tells us that businesses need to go mobile, to state the obvious, and by going mobile, what I mean is businesses would need to have the bare minimum of marketing tools, which is a mobile friendly site that downloads quickly. So in my opinion, that should be the bare minimum that each business would need to have in order to go mobile. And when I say a mobile site that downloads quickly, I mean it should by right download in 3 seconds or less. As the research again has shown that people tend to bounce off your website if it takes 3 seconds or more to load on your phone. So we are quite impatient when we're on our smartphones. And why do we want to do this? Obviously, as businesses, we want to be searchable on our potential customers' phones. So moving on to the next slide. So next we're going to talk about consumer behavior, and I'm going to talk about how we book events and tell you 3 stories, case stories of 3 particular brands that have moved their activities online. So, but before I do that, going back to the bit of research again, which is relevant, is that apps removes the need for physical tickets. So as part of the Ofcom Online Nations research, they also research apps as well. And they found that more than 2 in 5 or 44% of smartphone owners actually use their phone as a ticket when they attend events. So apps have the function of removing the need for physical tickets in this instance. So how will business events and networking evolve in 2020? That is $1 million question, and we've yet to actually get data coming in on this particular industry. However, I have 3 examples here, 3 stories which are close to my heart, which I like to talk about, which illustrates how these brands have actually adapted themselves and continue to offer events to help them lead generate, to help them maintain engagement and reduce customer attrition. So hopefully that's useful for you. Now, 2 of these companies are traditional brick and mortar organizations who have actually adapted. And the third one is a platform for face-to-face gatherings. So starting with Toastmasters International, I belong to a Toastmasters club locally. And one of the challenges we faced, obviously, when the lockdown started was that we were very much a traditional public club that encourages public speaking. So it's essentially a club where you go to practice your leadership and your public speaking skills. So we're very much locally based where I live here in Kingston, and we've always had face-to-face events. We've never had anything online. So when the lockdown started, we had to think quickly, and Toastmasters as a global organization very quickly, in fact in the space of a week, took all their clubs online. So we started telling our members and also our guests as well that we are now conducting our meetings online. And the result of that was that we allowed guests who are not yet members, paying members, to visit. So guests can visit anytime, but they can't really make a formal speech or take up roles in the clubs. So they can observe and introduce themselves, for example. So what it meant was for Toastmasters, we could continue our activities regularly. In fact, we have some of the clubs, Toastmasters clubs, have gone global as a result of going online. So we've had the opportunity to network on a global basis with other top class public speakers as well. And that was a great big bonus for us as a small little local club based here in Kingston. So it gave us much wider reach and helped us to lead generate as a club, in the sense that we are able to thankfully continue to recruit new members and paying members who are continuing to subscribe to pay subscription dues with us. Second example, Meetup. I'm sure we're all familiar with Meetup as a platform. It's a platform that facilitates online meetings, and a platform which I'm familiar with. And since lockdown, they have also adapted quite quickly, in the sense that they now facilitate online meetings, whereas before they did not used to facilitate online meetings. Meetup was known to be a traditional sort of a platform that encourages or facilitates face-to-face meetings and networking, but now they've sort of facilitated online seminars and webinars as well. So that's a great example. And obviously they also allow for payments as well via PayPal and via WeChat. The other example, which is our local chamber in Kingston, again, collecting membership dues on a monthly basis through local businesses. So we have a lot of businesses which are part of an active business community here in Kingston. And during the lockdown, what Kingston Chamber did was essentially they tried to reduce customer attrition. As there's always a danger that members would then stop paying or stop becoming members and attending events, because there are no events to attend face to face. All the events had to be cancelled as a result of the lockdown. So what Kingston Chamber did was move their events online and became very creative with the type of events that they organize, allowing members to continue networking online. So we had pub quizzes, for example, virtual networking via Zoom, breakout rooms, which are an interesting, helpful way of networking in small groups. Also have gin tastings as well with the local participating restaurant. And it was really interesting, something which is new to quite a few of us. And also interviews on topical issues for local members, businesses here, such as grants, applying for grants, and also accessing loans. And of course, they also have an event app as well, which communicates these events to members. So why am I telling you these stories? Well, these are quite inspiring stories, which shows that organizations whose business models rely on events are adapting to a different environment, and they've adapted quite well. And in the process, they have learned not just to survive, but they are also starting to explore ways of lead generation, ways of audience engagement and customer retention as well, by preventing members from terminating their subscriptions, in that sense, customer retention. So moving on to 3 must-have ingredients for an app to work. So this, I speak in a general sense. It applies to event apps as well, but I thought it'd be quite important to talk about basic ingredients that you need to have in order for when you consider whether to migrate onto an app or to use it as a marketing tool. So I call it the 3 C's, and these are content, community, and commitment. So these are the 3 C's, the 3 ingredients which, in my opinion, in our opinion, based on our experience working with small businesses, that you need to consider before you embark on an app. And it's important to note that by content, what I'm referring to by content is not to replicate exactly what's on your website onto an app, but to treat content as something that is an extension of what your website provides. So in other words, you do not throw every single bit of content that you have on your website onto a mobile app. That's not what an app is intended for. But really, it's about focusing what sort of content you'd like your app to have, and having a conversation about what you'd like your app to achieve, your app marketing goals, in other words, and how that can contribute to your overall marketing goals. So being focused on what you want the app to do, and then focusing your content on to deliver that goal, that marketing goal, if that makes sense. So obviously, to do that, you need to provide up-to-date content and, if possible, regularly refresh your content. And by content, this could be the events that you organize. It could be news that you want your followers, your customers to know, and also any special offers that you may be having. You can repurpose all that content across your social media onto your app. Which brings me on to the next point, which is that apps are fantastic for campaigns, for running campaigns, and they should ideally be part of a multi-channel marketing campaign. So it's important to integrate apps into your multi-channel campaigns. And to show you an example of what I mean by that is a piece of research, again, with Google, with Think with Google, which researches the top 3 reasons that people will have when switching from a mobile site, pardon me, to an app. When you're browsing, researching, or purchasing. So the top 3 reasons why people are going to switch from a mobile-friendly website to an app. And these are, top of these are, it's easier to navigate on an app. Number 2 reason, it's easier to make a purchase on an app. Offers more stability when making a purchase on an app. And number 3, it saves time in the checkout process. So these are the top 3 reasons from when people switch, for why people switch from a site to an app. And it's important to bear in mind that people do switch back as well as part of their customer journey in terms of when they make a buying decision. They can switch back and forth from app to a site or from a site to an app. And this piece of research has been illustrated on Google, on Think with Google. So again, what's the point of talking about all of that? Well, an app is one touch point, just to summarize this slide, is one touch point of a multi-channel marketing campaign for your customers and your followers. So it has to be integrated into your marketing campaign, and it's a tool that needs to have up-to-date content, and it needs to achieve a specific goal within your marketing campaign. So that's important to bear in mind. Next, we're going to move on to community. Right, so that's the second ingredient for an app to work. So by community, I would mean an audience, having an audience of customers and followers already present. And by customers and followers, it's important to have an understanding of who your customers and followers are. And there's been a research to show that to a certain extent, having an app and whether people are going to download an app and use your app is to a certain extent dependent on the age group you're in. And this is illustrated by a piece of research from Salesforce, State of the Connected Consumer Report, which interviewed 8,000 consumers and business buyers as well across different countries. So trying to research how they actually, how these people actually search for a product or service before they buy. So to some extent, as I mentioned, it's app technology usage. The uptake of app is dependent on how old you are. So the research shows that Generation Z, millennials, which people born between 1981 to 2000, And then you have the Generation X, which are born 1982 and upwards, and the baby boomers. So millennials and Gen Z tend to access a company via multiple channels more compared with the Generation X's and baby boomers. Meaning to say that they would, these two age groups, Gen Z and millennials, would expect a business or company to have more touch points for them to access the business compared to these two other age groups. So that's important to note, because we now know that with Generation Z and millennials, that there would be, there's a much higher chance, there's a higher chance for these two age groups to use an app to access the business than, say, Generation X or baby boomers, which will be more towards the other end of the scale. With Gen X, it will be more or less a split in terms of the adoption of app technology. And the top 5 popular channels, according to Salesforce, the top 5 popular channels for communicating with these brands, these companies are: number 1, email, quite a traditional channel; in person, phone, online chat or live support, and mobile app. So it's that in descending order. So number 1, email, in person, phone, online chat, live support, and finally mobile app. So these are the top 5 channels that people would tend to access when they're trying to research products and services to buy. And as I mentioned, the usage, the uptake rate really varies across the generations, depending age groups, depending on which age group you're in. Right. So the point of all this is that right, talking about community. So the point of it is that in this particular slide, we're not actually talking about the well-funded tech unicorns in this world. We're talking about regular businesses with combination of bricks and clicks. So combination of online and combination of offline channels when we do our marketing. So regular businesses which use both channels. And this is then relevant to, I would say, a large majority of us businesses who are considering using apps and thinking about how apps can work for them. If you do not have a following, a community of customers or followers, it is still possible to use an app for your marketing. However, it will take longer for it to work, for you to get more downloads, and will require advertising spend in order to start getting these downloads. Moving on to the last one, which is commitment. By commitment, that's a large topic in itself. It's the importance of commitment is getting your team involved. In other words, getting them involved in the design development of the app from day one, and also identifying what your marketing goals are for the app. Is it to engage with your customers and followers? Is it to provide convenience in terms of accessing your products and services? Or is it for monetization? So in other words, in this case, it could be, say, for example, your organization may be running events. You may run a lot of events throughout the year. You may want to use the app as a convenient way for your followers and customers to access the information that you have for them, the events that you have, and to allow them an easier way to book and to pay for your events. So that could be a marketing tool to facilitate that. And also it's important to ask yourself, or it's important to set aside a budget. Whether you're outsourcing this piece of work or you're doing it in-house, it's important to note that you need to set aside time and possibly a budget as well for you to be able to launch the app properly and to be able to market the app to your followers and to get downloads from your followers and from your customers. Getting your team involved, which I've mentioned earlier, and also testing and launching phase. At that phase, it's also important to note that you would need to get garner the support of as many people as possible, whether they're within your team, across different departments within your organizations, or your customers as well. So getting your app ambassadors to test and give feedback on your app is really important when you are at the pre-launch phase. And also what happens after you launch your app is just as important. It's the ongoing marketing, the ongoing incorporation of the mobile app into your marketing activities, and also identify who the ambassadors are, who's involved in the ongoing marketing activities, and also to make sure that the app is actually part of your marketing plan and not a standalone piece of technology that that you have on your own, in which case chances are it's not going to work for the organization. So it's just incorporating the app as part of your arsenal of marketing tools and making sure that it is in your marketing plan. So this is the key, to sum up, this is actually the key to making an app work for your business. And this does not matter whether you're spending £2,000, 10,000, 100 grand building an app for your business. The same marketing principles would apply if you want to use the app to reach out to your audience. So moving on to a case study, which we have working with a client of ours, which is TEDx Kingston. One of the challenges, TEDx Kingston, as you may be familiar with, is a not-for-profit organization that holds events throughout the year for the local community and aims to inspire the community in terms through speeches, inspiring the community. And one of the challenges that TEDx Kingston had when he started more than 2 years ago was that they're a new brand in Kingston. They may be a global brand, but in Kingston they're new. They didn't have a community of followers yet at that point in time. They had a flagship event which they were launching. They planned to launch in January 2019. And the challenge was they had to sell 900 tickets from scratch at the Rose Theatre. So that was their goal, their marketing goal. They also had no data access to those who bought tickets. So that was a bit ironic, but they had no access to who bought their tickets as it was via third party ticketing agent selling the tickets for them. So their marketing campaign was a multi-channel marketing campaign involving social media, email, and print media as well. And the app goal they had at the time was, of course, to drive downloads and to drive follower engagement. Marketing goal, obviously, to sell tickets, to sell all 900 tickets, and also because they have no data access to those who bought tickets, one of the aims was to build a mailing list, and they used the app to do that for them. In doing that, they used the app as a way of collecting data. So in their marketing campaign, they would then inform their database, their people, the people that they know. They had a small marketing mailing list at the time informing them to download the app so that they can then get access to content via the app, content as in event details, in-app coupon deals for participating local establishments. So that was the bonus for getting people to download the app. And in downloading the app, they then asked them for their details to join a mailing list. And in that way, they managed to collect 60% of the 900 ticket holders who actually bought a ticket to attend the event. So that was a success for TEDx Kingston in terms of fulfilling their app marketing goals. Then moving on to 2020, in January, we had a marketing campaign where they sold another 900 tickets at the Rose Theatre as well. So this time they have achieved their app marketing goal in 2019, which was to build up a mailing list from the local community, from people who've actually bought a ticket to attend the event. So moving on to January 2020, The app goal they had was slightly different this time. Again, it was also to engage the audience by introducing live event updates and also telling the audience attending the event on the day itself what the program was like. And also they went online 100%. So there was no print media involved this time in their marketing campaign. So in doing that, they then generated cost savings when running their 2020 campaign. So that we come to a close for my talk on app marketing. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, as I mentioned, do feel free to write in the chat box. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can do so through the QR code, which you can scan on your smartphone. And you can then book a 30-minute call with me, a one-to-one call with me, or you could link in with me via LinkedIn as well. Thanks for listening.